Hi there, welcome back. How are you today? So in this beautiful video, we wanted to talk about the fear of success. In the previous one, we talked about the fear of failure. For many of us, this is the main block that we have, this fear of failure, because we've been taught from so little that making mistakes is bad. Making mistakes is something we need to avoid. This is a pattern within so many of us. And for so many of us, we become perfectionists. Everything has to be perfect. Because if you make a mistake, there are dire consequences. We know where that leads. So we have to be perfect all the time. Everything has to be perfect. This is what leads to perfectionism. This not being allowed to make mistakes. You have to get it right the first time. You know, learning piano was... oh dear. I'm surprised I lasted as long as I have with piano, because piano is about making mistakes. Many, many, many mistakes. And I used to find that so stressful as a child, that making mistakes, when in my real life, I wasn't allowed to make mistakes. I would get smacked, I would get yelled at, and at the time, I think the grown-ups seemed to think that form of punishment would ensure that you'd remember, so you didn't do it next time. So you wouldn't keep repeating the same mistakes. I think that was the idea behind the form of punishment that we were raised with, because all of my cousins were raised the same. And our parents were raised much worse, than I was. So, I think that was the idea behind it. That if the child is, they'll remember, because that was the consequence for making that mistake, So, that was mistakes. Fear of mistakes comes from that pattern in your childhood. That every time you made a mistake, there was a punishment. And so within us, there's a belief that mistakes are bad, that we need to avoid mistakes. But in order to succeed, and now I'm talking as a piano teacher, to play a piece beautifully, there needs to be so many mistakes along the way. Months and months of playing it with mistakes, of getting it wrong, to eventually get it right and make it sound amazing. And I've learned with time. It's funny, as I'm saying that, with students, sometimes they'll make a mistake. And of course, I've been teaching the same songs now for 30 years. But sometimes they'll make a mistake and I'll be like, whoa, what did you do? Do that again. Because it sounds amazing. It's something different, but it still sounds good. They might have completely changed the key. Some of them might step in and they're meant to be in C position and they'll accidentally jump into A position or D position. And then it turns into a minor sound and be like, oh, cool, let's keep it there. Because that sounds really good. It sounds different. We've, jazzed it up a little bit now and stumbled upon something new. So sometimes mistakes lead to something new, something wonderful. Within the music lessons is what just came to mind. But for many of them, if it's a piece that they want to learn it exactly as it is, as it sounds, like Fur-Elise, for example, all kids are obsessed with learning Fur-Elise, by Beethoven. It takes months and months of practice and of hitting the wrong notes many, many times and of using the wrong fingers that don't allow the flow of the song. Until they persist and they practice and they practice and they practice. And it's about allowing yourself to make all those mistakes, to have the patience with yourself, to eventually get to that point where you can play it and it's beautiful. But life is the same. We learn through mistakes. Oh, okay, we tried this, it didn't work. Let's try that. Or perhaps this works with one person, but it may not work with another. And again, back to my piano lessons, the methods that I use with some students, I can't use them with all students. Not all of them learn the same. And so every time I'm in a lesson, I have to adapt to that student, to how they interpret music. Because some of them are analytical, and so they're very happy to read the notes, learn it that way. You know, count. There's lots of maths in music. There's lots of counting and dividing and subdividing. And all this is going on constantly without us even thinking about it. But we do it. So there's a lot of analyzing in music. And for the analytical mind, for those that love doing maths at school, music is brilliant for them. But then there are those that are not analytical in their thinking. And so there are different ways that we need to present the same lessons. You know, some children, and my daughter's one of them, I've noticed, she started to pick up piano again. They will memorize. She'll learn it with the notes first. Like, I'll put in the notes, she'll work it out. But within an hour, she's off the page and she's memorized it. And other students will be there, glued to the page the whole way through, following note for note. They can't let go of that. And others have to hear it. With some students, if they can hear the recording, because now we have recordings for everything, My life would have been a rainbow if I had the recordings like the kids have now, that they can find everything on YouTube, or you have the CDs that come with the books now. I mean, there's so much to assist with learning that you can listen to it and you can pick up the rhythm and then off you go. It's just really learning the notes. For those that are more internal, they have to internalize the music first. They have to hear it. They have to feel it. And then, so, I know that we all learn different from experience. I've even had twins and I can't teach them the same. They were completely different in their learning methods. The boy was very analytical and the girl just wasn't. I had to find a very different approach for her to learn compared to her brother. I was blown away that day and I thought, wow, even with twins, I still have to work differently and adapt to each one, So business is the same. Everything is the same. If you have a business venture, this is what you want to work on and this is what you want to do, there are going to be lots of mistakes. It's just the way it is. There's going to be lots. And you have to allow yourself that space. Because through those mistakes, you learn, oh, okay, this didn't work. This worked. And then you tweak it. You tweak what works. But like I said, if you're working with people, say you're a psychologist, each patient that you have is going to be different. And I can't imagine that what works with one will work with all of them. Whatever method you use to assist with one, it's not going to work for all of them because everyone's different and everyone's on a different path. So we have to adapt. Now, that's fear of failure and where fear of failure comes from. And fear of success, which for me took a really long time. And it wasn't until I was listening to these beautiful guys that put together these coaching programs every year. And his wife came to talk about fear of success, where her fear of success came from. And as soon as she said it, I had this light bulb moment in my head. When I was growing up as a child, I was constantly reading books. I was fascinated with school. I loved learning, and I did really well at all the tests at school. I ended up being dux, at school, all of that, but I loved it. It wasn't something that my parents had to force me to do it. It was just natural in me to learn, to want to learn, to more, as a kid. That was me. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know more. That was just me. But all of those around me, my sister, my cousins, all the others, had no interest in school at all. My sister used to find reading boring. It was a chore to her. She hated reading. And she would start reading the first two letters of the word and then just make it up, And my mum would get frustrated because by that stage she knew a little bit of English, and with the younger years she was trying to help her with the reading. And she would get frustrated that my sister just didn't want to put any effort into it. It was like, no. But looking back, I was the odd duck. Not them. They were all the same, which meant that I was the odd one out, you know. And what happened was, and then I started piano, and I was doing really well with piano and all of these things where I was successful as a child. But looking back, it made the others around me feel bad. It made my sister feel bad because my mum was always comparing. I remember in the background always hearing my mum saying to my sister, why can't you be more like your sister? She's good at reading. She loves reading. What's wrong with you? Why can't you be good at school? Look at your sister. You know, she's always studying. She's always reading. She's always doing so well. Always. She was always comparing her. Now, looking back, okay, because this information also came much later after I had my awakening. My mum was just trying to help her because in her eyes, in my mum's eyes, my parents came from such a poor background, and all they wanted for us was for us to go to university and to be set for life. This was what they thought. If our girls go to university and they have a career and they have a degree, they'll be set for life financially. This was their hope for us, that this is what they could give us in this lifetime. You know, university, a career, a degree, set for life financially. And so she was constantly trying to get my sister on this train of study, because you need to go to university, you need to do all this to be set for life. It wasn't out of malice that my mum was doing it, you know. When I first woke up to, oh, that's why my sister was so jealous all the time, because my mum was always comparing her to me, you know, and in her eyes, I was perfect, you know, like my mum's eyes. In my sister's eyes, you know, my sister would always look at my mum and the way my mum spoke about me, and she was always like, oh, she's the perfect one, you know. So at one point I was like, she was jealous of me, but I couldn't work out the why, until one day after awakening I had that realization of those conversations in the background, always hearing that, my mom comparing her to me. Why can't you be more like your sister? And then I connected the dots. Oh, okay, that's why she was jealous. But for a long time I couldn't work out why my mum did that. Why would she do that? Why would she not accept my sister as she is, you know, and try and nourish her gifts, her talents, you know, which she has many, you know. So I couldn't work that out until much later. And like I said, it had to do with us being financially free, that we would never struggle with money, you know. This was her dream for both of us. So that's that. But what came from it, of course, is because of that jealousy from my sister, and I could see that it made her feel bad, I felt bad about succeeding. It made me feel bad. And so the fear of success usually comes because when you are really good at doing something in childhood, you know, the story of this beautiful lady that came forward was that she had a gorgeous voice. And her sibling, her younger sibling, wanted to sing, but she just didn't have the voice to sing, you know. And so she would perform in front of the family and sing all these beautiful songs with her gorgeous voice. And then one day she realized, when she finished the performance and everyone was clapping, she looked at her sister's face and she saw how upset she looked, that she didn't have the same talent. She didn't have the same gift. And so she felt bad that she was successful. Her success was making others feel bad. You know, the people around her that she loved. And it was with that story that I understood, oh, all that time being good at school, doing all those things, being successful in my childhood, because of the love I had for learning, made my sister feel bad. And with time I found out also my cousins, my aunts and uncles were comparing them to me at school as well. Why can't you be more like, look how well she's doing? You know, I found out with time. I didn't even know. I think my daughter was She'd just been born, I think, and we'd gone to this barbecue that one of my cousins was holding, and he said to my husband, oh, because she was ducks at school. And I never told my husband that up until that point, and we'd been together, I'm trying to think now, about 15 years. I'd never mentioned any of that because to me it was insignificant. At the time, I didn't think any of it. That was just me. That was just, I loved doing it, and I didn't realize how much it affected everyone around me until my cousin made that comment to him and the way he said it. Because I was standing there when he said it. Just the way he said it. And inside I just felt this, I wanted to hug him, but I was like, I just walked away. At that time, I just felt really bad for him, that it wasn't his fault. We're not all born with the same love of learning. Some of us have different gifts, different talents. So, yeah, we feel like our success, when we are successful as little ones, we feel like it hurts others, our loved ones. Especially when they don't have the same gifts and they're constantly being compared to you. So, my beautiful beings, it's the awareness of how you have that fear of success that can free you from it. Until you're aware of why you're afraid to be successful, for many of us, it's because it hurt others. Our success, our doing so well. So until you're aware of that moment in your life, it's hard to release it from your system. Just like when I realized recently that I don't tell my husband when I make mistakes because of how he'll react. It's going to upset him. And that was an old pattern from when I was little. And that my mum would yell at me and she would smack me when I made mistakes. And so where I could, I avoided telling her anything, because I didn't want to be yelled at. I didn't want to be smacked. And so we cover it up. We learn to cover it up rather than be honest and just deal with the person's reaction. They have a right to react however they want to react. Your partner is in your life with you. What happens to you happens to them. It affects both of you. You're living together. You're sharing a life together, So, the same. I couldn't release that from my system until I was aware of why I was doing it. And when you realize why you're doing it and that's done, it's gone, you can let go of it. You don't need it anymore. All right, my beautiful beings. So hopefully this video has brought up a lot in you, whether it's the fear of success and where that came from, why it's there, or the fear of failure. What was going on in your childhood that created that fear of failure or that fear of success? Hopefully this beautiful video will bring it to light for you, that you can release it back to love and move forward without that weight on your shoulders. All right, my beautiful beings, we love you dearly. Remember to click like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the messages. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.